Eu tiro e te mando.
Estoy presente. I am present. I am here in solidarity for the people around the world that fight with us. There are rallies like this all across this country. And as an American, as your mayor, and first and foremost, a human being, what is happening in this country must stop. It must stop. We are here today because the moral conscience of our country is drowning in hate. We no longer can support an administration that locks our children up like animals, ripping them from the arms of their parents. Earlier this week, along with other mayors across the country, I signed an open letter to the President and the Congress demanding the stopping of this behavior. We have to fight, but instead of fighting with hate, we fight with love. We fight with education. We fight with resistance. But we can change this dynamic in this country. We are going to a place in the United States of America that's not comfortable for me. It doesn't feel as if this is the country I want to live in. Yeah. We are the country built on mission. And what we have to continuously do is to make sure that our voices get heard. Now, I know here in Massachusetts, our delegation is strong, but we have to reverberate out this country to make sure other voices are equally as strong. One city at a time, one town at a time.
Next up, I'd like to introduce the Middlesex Attorney, Marion Ryan. Thank you. First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming out on this hot day to show that sometimes lines get crossed. And I want to talk about three things about what's been happening that are different than what we believe here in Middlesex. The first is the rule of law matters. We in this country do not allow anything to be taken from people without due process. We in this country believe that even when it comes to your property, to your money, to your car, how much more when it is your child? The second is that what we know well in the criminal justice system is that childhood trauma is at the root of so much of the misery of people's later lives. We in Middlesex County have a program directed with our first responders to preventing and addressing the trauma children experience in an incident in their life. Think of these children. It's not just the separation. These children are now being flown across our country. Parents here would think many times before putting a child alone on a plane to go visit a grandparent. These children are being put on planes alone and flown around the country to facilities where they know no one. That is trauma that is happening and re-happening to these children. That cannot be right. It cannot be right. And whatever your feeling is about immigration, this is not a debate about immigration policy. This is about the fate of each one of these children. No less precious than our children. Immigration policy while we have children being traumatized. That is the important message of this. We cannot be distracted to talk about what's happening over here while children are being put on planes on the other side. So I want to thank you for realizing that there is a point where we as a country, we as Middlesex County, no longer will tolerate what is happening. You are showing that with your feet by being here today. Thank you.
Lady Blackman, the District Director for Policies for the Office of Congresswoman Catherine Clark.
As many of you know, Congresswoman Clark traveled to the border last weekend. She visited a detention center where children and parents had been separated and discussed the situation with ICE and CBP officials. Fortunately, her visit to the border confirmed her worst fears. The Congresswoman visited with children living on concrete floors, huddled under Mylar blankets. She met a mother in detention whose son was sent to New York. No one could tell her where or how to contact him. She was just one of dozens of mothers who had no way of contacting their children and had no idea where their children were. No one that she spoke with could articulate a plan to reunify the families. Since the Congresswoman has returned from the border, our offices in Framingham, Cambridge, and D.C. have heard from many more families. Some still don't know where their children are. Families that have fled unsafe, desperate circumstances to seek refuge, instead are being imprisoned and re-traumatized. Children that were traveling with their parents are being treated as if they are unaccompanied minors. They've been removed from their parents and subject to intense scrutiny, questioning, detention, and processing delays. Our office has also heard from an overwhelming number of constituents like you, from all over the district, expressing their dismay, disbelief, and disgust at this policy. I stand with you today to say that we share your outrage. This policy is immoral, dangerous, and simply wrong. Humanitarian crisis because of this. Congressman Clark is committed to reunifying all of the families and to immigration policies that treat people with dignity that they deserve. And she will not stop fighting, and neither will we, until every family has been reunited with their children.
What's going on down there, and we should be very proud. Our next speaker is a representative from Representative Jack Lewis's office.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to say that the representative regrets that he couldn't be here himself today, but I want you to know that it's not from a lack of deep compassion and dedication to this issue. As an immigrant myself, it's been an honor to work with someone who fights every day for immigrant communities here in Framingham and Ashland and across the Commonwealth. What's happening today in Washington and across the country is unconscionable and nothing short of inhumane. And frankly must be stopped. We're working with our federal leaders to see what we can do at the federal level. We're also continuing to fight as much as we can to see what we can do at the state level to support our thriving immigrant communities. We're still very supportive of the Safe Communities Act to make sure that our local officials are cooperating with ICE, that our local resources are not being used to advance Trump's anti-immigrant agenda. I want to thank all of the organizers for putting this event together today and for everyone for coming out. We have to continue to stay alert, to come to rallies like this, to vote in elections later this year, to contact our representatives. Please call me anytime, and keep the pressure on to make sure that we can end these abhorrent policies. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is City Councilor at Large Cheryl Tully-Stahl.
This isn't the America. This is not the America I grew up in. However, today you have proven this is the Framingham I grew up in. How could anybody think putting children in a situation similar to a kennel would be an acceptable idea? The America I grew up in, if a child was missing, the picture was on a milk carton. We found them. One at a time we found them. Now we're losing them thousands at a time? This is not the America I grew up in. The federal government knows where their office inventory is, but they can't find these children? Really? This is unacceptable, and it is not American. We used to be the country that helped refugees. We would go in and help refugee camps. Now we're creating them on our own land. This is so morally wrong. If this is not the America that our forefathers envisioned. Right. The Statue of Liberty says something, and it's supposed to mean something. And for so many of us in our families, if you're not an American Indian, it meant a lot to somebody in your family. I don't want that statue to become irrelevant. And I don't want us to look like hypocrites because we still respect it. We need to have the federal government take responsibilities for these shameful actions and reunite these families as soon as possible. And then we need to make sure, going forward, that nothing even remotely close to this ever happens in this country by our public officials. Thank you all for standing up for strangers because it's the right thing to do, and thank you for coming today.
Our next speaker is Councilor Margaret Shepherd.
Thank you for hearing us. Thank you for standing with the kids. We have with out of 2,000 kids, 51 Brazilian kids that were separated. They were distributed around the country. In some place, just one. In one place that no one speaks the language. No one is able to contact with them, to communicate with them.